Yoshi's Story was the scariest freaking game I played as a kid. Now I know what you're thinking. Tall Fox, that's stupid. You're stupid. This is a game for babies that is literally about babies. Well, I would say you're only half right about both of those assertions. Yoshi's Story, for all intents and purposes, was a game about being happy, complete with lots of rainbows and sunshine and happy songs that could be misconstrued as something else due to the weird lyrics. The plot of the game is that the Yoshis are setting out on a journey to find the super happy tree, which will allow them to eat to their heart's content, and that the reason it's missing in the first place is because baby Bowser stole it from them. I mean, this sounds like as if someone wrote a story for one of those Lisa Frank folders. At face value, it was just a goofy game about multicolored dinosaurs devouring every possible thing they could find in order to retrieve their tree of hedonism. But if you actually played the game, you'd realize how harrowing the journey for the Yoshis could be. The game goes and pulls a bait and switch on you in the first 2 levels. You take a romp through this happy-looking storybook area with its fields of green and obstacles to overcome. Maybe you'll be a little weirded out by this bizarre-looking elephant traffic guard with polka-dotted pants. Or maybe this thing. But other than that, there really isn't anything that would elicit true fear. It makes you believe that this whole game is probably just going to be like this and that you'll just have a great time. Well, then the game throws you into the second level where you have to traverse the pits of hell and the demons within. The mood whiplash of this stage was really jarring to me as a kid. One minute I'm running through fields, eating every melon I can find, and then suddenly I'm down in some dark cave fighting Draco Liches, lava monsters, and well, whatever the hell you are. The game had the nerve to do this again, only one stage later with the snow level. Suddenly back to sunshine and rainbows and happy music, as if it's trying to erase the horrors your poor dinosaur brain just witnessed.
Your trauma isn't
It's
real,
all in your
Yoshi.
head, Yoshi.
It's all perfectly fine.
It didn't
Yoshi.
happen,
I just
Yoshi.
say 15% of
Yoshi,
my
just
culture is by
try
switching
being
to
happy,
Geico,
Yoshi. Sure, you'll fight a boss in one stage that's just some goofy-ass cotton candy monster, or a genie, or a ghost, or a big dinosaur that you have to kill using his inflation fetish. But you also defeat one of these bosses by eating it alive. And that concept isn't out of place in this game, true, but every other enemy, it's just a quick one and done. That Shy Guy probably didn't feel a thing. I hope. But for this boss, you are tearing off fragments of its soul piece by piece, slowly but surely whittling it down before you consume it completely as it frantically tries to get away from our hero's insatiable avarice. Then for the very next stage, you go to the jungle, where you have the option of doing a bright and colorful stage, assuming you haven't unlocked the others, or you could descend into the dark depths of the jungle and face the horrors within. Giant piranha plants and giant fish that can devour you whole. You know, I talked about this in my Halloween video last year, but I'm starting to see a pattern in some of my childhood fears. Getting eaten alive was particularly terrifying to me as a kid. And I'm not sure why I latched onto that as a phobia. Well, it could be worse, I guess. Could have gone the other direction, where some people see it as a fetish. Oh, and speaking of the jungle, you could play a stage with these things, which were touted as being friendly, but they're still ungodly horrifying to look at, so no thanks. The next stage is kind of the same deal, where you potentially have the option to play a happy-looking level with some goofy-ass Shy Guys doing the limbo or being in a pirate ship, or you can descend into the darkness and the mystery of the deep, witnessing things that have driven stronger men mad. You guys ever wonder why Lovecraft wrote stories about eldritch abominations coming from the ocean? Because the real ocean is already mysterious and horrifying. Not to mention a large chunk of it remains unexplored. Cthulhu could really be down there. You don't know. If you make it past this stage, you're now at the end of the game, infiltrating Baby Bowser's castle in one of 4 terror-filled scenarios. How would you like to be traumatized today, young Yoshi? Would you like to be crushed to death, beset upon by ghosts, or maybe burned alive? Or maybe you'd just like to be killed by whatever this thing is. What is this thing? This is the only place in the entire game where it is, and it's just here with its face and Alright, you've made it this far, so I'm gonna come clean. I know full well that Yoshi's Story is not intended to be a horror game or anything of the sort. It's a light platformer following Mario's favorite sidekick, and just like I said at the very beginning, it's about being happy, and most of the game is actually pretty cutesy and endearing for the Yoshis themselves, right down to the music. But despite that, there was a lot about Yoshi's Story that really freaked me out as a kid, and I think a large part of it just had to do with the art style. Yoshi's Story had this interesting mix of still backgrounds rendered with 3D cartoonish graphics where it managed to avoid looking like the ugly, poorly textured 3D models on the N64, and instead maintained a stylized, cartoony look. And what this means is that Yoshi's Story, at least visually, has aged remarkably well thanks to how stylized it was. But what freaked me out about this game as a kid mostly had to do with the game's art style itself. There were so many weird and bizarre things in Yoshi's Story that were just so goddamn freaky looking. Like this caterpillar that has hyper-realistic fur for some reason, or 100 other things. Mostly the enemies that had some sort of weird-ass face attached to them. Despite being such a cute and happy game, all of the monsters in Yoshi's Story are horrifying abominations. The funny thing is though is that part of me thinks that this is intentional. After all, we've already established that the Yoshis in this game are babies. They've just been born, they're still developing their cognition of the world around them, and as a result, the way these monsters are appearing might just be how they perceive them. That being way scarier than they actually are. Maybe this unholy balloon creature doesn't actually have the smile of a 90s slasher villain. Maybe it's just a regular ass looking balloon. I mean, really, how many of us as kids didn't have super wild imaginations that twisted simple things into nightmare monsters? Imaginations that turned that weirdly patterned sweater in your closet into a bloodthirsty demon because the shadows in your room made it look that way. Hell, Rugrats even did an episode about that. Okay, that right there, that definitely traumatized some kids, Nick. So if that was the case, then it might make sense why everything in the world of Yoshi's Story is so dangerous and why everything is so freaky looking. Even the things that might be considered friendly. Everything looks like a monster because the Yoshis haven't developed to the point where they perceive them as anything else. If that's the case, then it's pretty clever. If this game had been following a character like Mario, who was older and more savvy to the world around him, maybe these things wouldn't have been so terrifying. Except whatever the hell this thing is, because that is a nightmare no matter how old you are.
Yoshi. 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 Yoshi.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me.